a crisp autumn afternoon, the air carried a gentle chill as golden leaves danced in the breeze. The park was alive with activity. Children laughed, dogs barked playfully, and joggers moved rhythmically along the winding paths. Amidst this lively scene sat Jasmine Rivers, a woman whose quiet strength commanded attention even from afar. She had found her favorite spot near the entrance of Lincoln Park, where she could soak in the sunlight while reading her book. Her wheelchair gleamed slightly under the sun, its metallic frame reflecting not just light but also the resilience of the person sitting in it. Jasmine wasn't like everyone else in the park that day. A decorated veteran of the Marine Corps, she had served her country with honor until an injury during active duty left her unable to walk. But if you asked anyone who knew her, they'd tell you that Jasmine's spirit remained unbroken. If anything, her experiences had only deepened her determination to live life fully despite her physical limitations. Today, however, her peaceful afternoon would take an unexpected turn. As Jasmine turned another page of her novel, a group of teenagers began to gather nearby. They were loud, their laughter carrying across the open space. At first glance, they seemed harmless enough, young kids blowing off steam after school. But their energy quickly shifted toward mischief. Their eyes scanned the park until they landed on Jasmine. One of them nudged another, pointing at her wheelchair. What started, as whispers soon grew louder, morphing into cruel taunts aimed directly at her. "Hey, look at Grandma Wheels over there," one boy shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. His friends erupted into laughter, egging him on. Another chimed in, "Yeah, bet she can't even move without help." Their words cut through the calm like shards of glass, sharp and painful. Jasmine tried hard to ignore them. She kept her focus on her book, pretending they weren't there. But inside, her heart pounded. She recognized the tone, the same kind of cruelty she'd faced before, both as a black woman navigating a world riddled with prejudice and as someone living with a disability. Yet today felt different. These weren't strangers passing judgment. These were young people deliberately trying to hurt her. The insults continued, growing more vicious by the second. "What's wrong with your legs? Too lazy to use them?" One sneered. Another added, "And why are you all dressed up? Trying to impress someone?" Jasmine wore a simple yet polished outfit, a crisp white shirt paired with dark slacks. To her, it was a way of maintaining dignity and self-respect, even when society often overlooked people like her. But to the bullies, it was just another target for ridicule. Then came the moment that crossed the line. One of the boys, emboldened by his friend's cheers, stepped forward and kicked the front wheel of her chair. The force nearly tipped her over, sending her heart racing. For a split second, fear gripped her, but anger quickly followed. How dare they? Who did these kids think they were? Despite the surge of emotion boiling inside her, Jasmine refused to let them see her shaken. She straightened her posture, her jaw tightening as she steadied herself. Her hands gripped the arms of her wheelchair firmly, grounding her against the chaos around her. Years of military training had taught her how to stay composed under pressure, and she drew on that discipline now. Still, she knew she couldn't handle this alone. Something had to be done. Reaching into her pocket, Jasmine pulled out her phone. Her fingers moved swiftly over the screen as she typed out a message to her closest friend from the service, a fellow Marine named Marcus. The text was short, but urgent. "I'm at Lincoln Park. Could use some backup." She hit send without hesitation, knowing exactly what would happen next. Unbeknownst to the bullies, Jasmine's call for help wasn't just reaching one person, it was triggering a chain reaction. The network of veterans she belonged to was vast, filled with individuals who shared not only a history of service but also an unshakable bond forged in the fires of adversity. Within moments, her message began spreading like wildfire. Friends forwarded it to other friends, tagging members of their unit alumni groups and local veteran organizations. Screens lit up all over town as former Marines read the plea and sprang into action. Back at the park, the bullies showed no signs of stopping. If anything, their behavior grew bolder, fueled by the lack of resistance from their target. They circled, Jasmine like predators, hurling insults and laughing at their own cleverness. None of them noticed the distant rumble of engines or the sound of boots hitting pavement. Oblivious to the storm heading their way, they reveled in their perceived victory. But Jasmine knew better. She glanced at her phone briefly, seeing the flood of responses pouring in. Messages like, "We're coming," "Hold tight," and "Nobody" messes with our girl scrolled across the screen. Each word reinforced the truth she already knew. She wasn't alone. Help was on the way, and when it arrived, things were about to change dramatically. For now, though, she sat silently, her gaze steady and unwavering. The bullies thought they'd broken her, but in reality, they had underestimated the power of unity and loyalty. Jasmine wasn't just a disabled veteran in a wheelchair. She was a symbol of strength, courage, and sacrifice. And very soon, the entire park would bear witness to the force standing behind her. Jasmine's simple text message, "I'm at Lincoln Park, could use some backup," was more than just a request for help. It was a signal flare, igniting a chain reaction among the close-knit community of veterans she had been part of for years. Her words didn't just reach one person. They traveled like wildfire through networks of former Marines, each recipient feeling an immediate surge of responsibility and urgency. What started as a quiet plea quickly escalated into something far greater, a mobilization that would leave both Jasmine and the bullies stunned. Marcus Hale, the recipient of Jasmine's initial message, was the first to respond. A towering figure with broad shoulders and a commanding presence, Marcus had served alongside Jasmine during some of their toughest missions. Their bond went beyond camaraderie. It was a deep, unspoken connection forged in the trenches of shared sacrifice. When he read her text, his blood ran cold. He knew Jasmine well enough to understand that she wouldn't ask for help unless the situation was serious. Without hesitation, Marcus grabbed his keys, threw on his leather jacket adorned with Marine Corps patches, and headed straight for Lincoln Park. But Marcus didn't stop there. As he drove, he began making calls, sending texts, and tagging members of their old unit in group chats. "Jasmine needs us," he typed furiously, adding the location. The response was instantaneous. Messages poured in from all directions. "On my way." "ETA 15 minutes. Tell me who I need to knock out." Each reply carried the weight of loyalty and duty. These weren't ordinary people. They were warriors, individuals trained to act decisively in moments of crisis. And while this wasn't a battlefield, it felt no less urgent. To them, Jasmine wasn't just a comrade, she was family. No one messed with family without facing consequences. The ripple effect of Marcus's call spread rapidly. Veterans who lived within driving distance sprang into action, slipping into their old uniforms or donning civilian clothes marked with Marine insignias. Some hopped onto motorcycles, revving their engines as they sped toward the park. Others piled into trucks, their vehicles proudly flying American flags. Each person brought not only their physical presence but also the collective strength of the brotherhood and sisterhood they had sworn to uphold. As the minutes ticked by, the scene at Lincoln Park remained unchanged. For now. The bullies continued their relentless harassment, oblivious to the storm gathering just outside their line of sight. They laughed louder, emboldened by Jasmine's apparent silence. One of them mimicked her posture, slouching exaggeratedly in his seat. Another made fun of her book, holding it upside down and pretending to read aloud in a mocking tone. None of them noticed the distant roar of engines growing closer, or the rhythmic thud of boots hitting pavement as dozens of Marines closed in. Back at the center of it all, Jasmine sat calmly, her expression unreadable. She could feel the tension building around her, but she refused to give the bullies the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Instead, she focused on the faint sounds approaching, the hum of voices, the clinking of dog tags, the unmistakable cadence of disciplined footsteps. She allowed herself a small smile, knowing exactly what was coming next. These kids thought they were untouchable, but they had no idea whom they were dealing with. Meanwhile, the arriving Marines formed an impromptu strategy. Word had spread about the specifics of the situation: a disabled black female veteran being harassed by a group of teenagers. For many of them, this hit close to home. Not only did they share Jasmine's military background, but they also understood the struggles of facing prejudice and disrespect in everyday life. This wasn't just about defending a friend. It was about standing up for justice, honor, and the values they had sworn to protect. Sergeant Rachel Torres, a petite yet fiercely determined woman who had served 2 tours overseas, took charge of organizing the group. Standing atop a picnic table, she addressed the growing crowd of veterans. "Listen up," she called out, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We're here to show these punks what happens when you mess with one of ours. But we do this the right way. No violence, no threats. We let our presence speak for itself." Her words resonated deeply. The Marines nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring dignity and teaching a lesson. Together, they moved as a single unit, converging on the park with precision and purpose. Some jogged ahead, eager to get to Jasmine as quickly as possible. Others hung back slightly, ensuring the entire area was covered. By the time the last Marine arrived, nearly 50 of them stood shoulder to shoulder, forming a protective barrier around Jasmine. The transformation was immediate. Where moments ago there had been chaos and cruelty, there was now order and unity. The bullies froze mid-laugh, their smug grins fading as they realized they were surrounded. Panic flickered in their eyes as they took in the sea of stern faces staring back at them. These weren't random adults showing up to intervene. These were soldiers, warriors, protectors. Every single one of them radiated authority, their postures rigid, their expressions unwavering. One of the teenagers tried to laugh it off, attempting to play it cool. "What's going on? Why are y'all here?" he asked nervously, his bravado crumbling under the weight of the moment. But before anyone could answer, Sergeant Marcus Hale stepped forward. His massive frame cast a shadow over the group, silencing them instantly. "You think this is how you treat heroes?" Marcus barked, pointing directly at Jasmine. His voice boomed like thunder, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. "This woman sacrificed everything for your freedom. She risked her life so you could have the privilege of acting like idiots. You want to keep running your mouths? Go ahead, but know we're watching." His words struck a nerve. The bullies stammered apologies, backing away slowly before breaking into a full sprint. Within seconds, they disappeared from sight, leaving behind nothing but shame and regret. The park fell silent except for the rustling leaves and the occasional chirp of birds overhead. For Jasmine, the arrival of her fellow Marines was overwhelming, not because she had doubted their loyalty, but because of the sheer magnitude of their response. She hadn't expected such a massive turnout, yet here they were, standing tall and proud, ready to defend her honor. Tears welled up in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. Showing vulnerability wasn't her style, especially not in front of her brothers and sisters in arms. Rachel approached her first, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "You okay, Jazz?" she asked softly, placing a reassuring hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "I'm fine," Jasmine replied, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "But I didn't need saving. I've faced worse than those punks." Rachel chuckled, shaking her head. "Maybe not, but we needed to do this. For you. For us. For every vet who deserves respect." As the other Marines gathered around, offering hugs, handshakes, and heartfelt words of admiration, Jasmine felt a warmth wash over her. This moment wasn't just about the bullies or the confrontation. It was about reaffirming the bonds that tied them together. In the eyes of her fellow veterans, she saw not pity or sympathy, but pride and love. They reminded her that she was never truly alone, no matter how isolating life sometimes felt. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, the scene became a testament to the enduring power of unity and solidarity. The bullies might have run away, but the message they left behind was clear. Mess with one Marine and you mess with them all. The arrival of the Marines at Lincoln Park transformed the atmosphere completely. What had been a tense and hostile environment moments earlier was now filled with an overwhelming sense of order, strength, and unity. The bullies, who just moments ago had been laughing and hurling insults without a care in the world, found themselves frozen in place. Their bravado evaporated instantly as they took in the sight before them. Dozens of men and women standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces stern, their postures unyielding. These weren't ordinary people. These were warriors, each carrying themselves with the unmistakable air of someone trained to handle chaos with calm precision. Sergeant Marcus Hale stood at the forefront, his towering frame casting a long shadow over the group of teenagers. His voice cut through the silence like a blade, sharp and commanding. "You think this is how you treat heroes?" he barked, pointing directly at Jasmine. His words carried a weight that made even the oldest of the bullies shrink back. "This woman sacrificed everything for your freedom. She risked her life so you could have the privilege of acting like idiots. You want to keep running your mouths? Go ahead, but know we're watching." The impact of Marcus's words hit hard. The bullies exchanged nervous glances, their earlier confidence crumbling under the weight of accountability. One of them, clearly the ringleader, tried to laugh it off, attempting to salvage what little dignity he had left. "We were just messing around," he stammered, his voice trembling. "It was just a joke." But his attempt at deflection fell flat. The Marines didn't respond with anger or raised fists. They didn't need to. Their collective presence alone was enough to convey the gravity of the situation. As the bullies fumbled for excuses, Sergeant Rachel Torres stepped forward, her petite frame belying the authority she exuded. She knelt beside Jasmine's wheelchair, ensuring her friend felt safe and supported, but her focus remained on the group of teenagers. Her tone softened slightly, though it still carried an edge of steel. "Let me tell you something," she said, addressing the bullies directly. "Jokes are supposed to make people laugh, not tear them down. Words can hurt more than fists ever could, and disrespecting someone like Jasmine? That's not a joke. That's cowardice." Her words struck a nerve. The teenagers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the Marines surrounding them and the ground beneath their feet. They knew they had crossed a line, and there was no denying it now. One by one, they began mumbling apologies, their voices barely audible over the rustling leaves. "Sorry," one muttered, keeping his head down. Another followed suit, adding, "We didn't mean anything by it." But the Marines weren't satisfied with mere words. Actions spoke louder than apologies, and they intended to drive that lesson home. Marcus gestured toward the park benches nearby. "Sit," he ordered firmly. The bullies hesitated for a moment before complying, their movements slow and hesitant. Once seated, they listened as Marcus delivered a stern lecture about respect, responsibility, and the consequences of their actions. He began by recounting stories from his own time in the military, sharing anecdotes about the sacrifices soldiers made every day. He spoke of sleepless nights spent in freezing conditions, of leaving loved ones behind for months at a time, and of the physical and emotional tolls of serving one's country. "Jasmine isn't just a veteran," he emphasized, his voice softer, now but no less powerful. "She's a hero, and heroes don't deserve to be treated the way you treated her today." The teenagers sat quietly, absorbing every word. For many of them, this was the first time they had ever heard such stories firsthand. They had grown up hearing about war and sacrifice in history books, but sitting face to face with someone who had lived it was an entirely different experience. Slowly, the realization dawned on them. They hadn't just insulted a disabled woman, they had disrespected someone who had given up so much for their benefit. As Marcus concluded his speech, other Marines stepped forward to share their own perspectives. Some spoke passionately about the challenges of living with disabilities, explaining how society often dismissed or underestimated individuals like Jasmine. Others highlighted the importance of empathy and kindness, urging the teenagers to think twice before targeting someone simply because they seemed different. Each story added another layer to the lesson, reinforcing the idea that true strength came not from belittling others, but from lifting them up. Throughout this exchange, Jasmine remained at the center of it all, her expression calm but resolute. She appreciated the support of her fellow veterans, but she also understood that this moment wasn't just about her. It was about teaching these young people a valuable lesson. As the Marines continued speaking, she noticed subtle changes in the bullies' demeanor. Their initial defiance had faded, replaced by genuine remorse. A few even wiped tears from their eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of what they had done. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes of heartfelt dialogue, Marcus signaled for the group to wrap things up. He turned to the teenagers one last time, his voice firm but compassionate. "I hope you've learned something today," he said. "Respect isn't something you give because it's easy. It's something you give because it's right. Remember that moving forward." With nothing left to say, the bullies slowly rose from the benches and shuffled away. Their heads hung low. None of them looked back as they disappeared into the distance, their earlier arrogance replaced by shame and regret. It was clear that this encounter would stay with them for a long time, perhaps even shaping the way they interacted with others in the future. Once the teenagers were gone, the Marines turned their attention back to Jasmine. Dozens of hands reached out to offer hugs, handshakes, and words of encouragement. Some knelt beside her wheelchair, sharing memories of their time in service and reminding her that she was never truly alone. Others stood guard, ensuring the area remained secure while the group regrouped. For Jasmine, the moment was both humbling and empowering. She hadn't asked for such an overwhelming show of solidarity, yet here they were, her brothers and sisters in arms, standing united in her defense. Tears welled up in her eyes once again, but this time she didn't try to hide them. Instead, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of their love and support, letting it wash over her like a warm embrace. Rachel squeezed her shoulder gently, offering a small smile. "You okay, Jazz?" she asked softly, repeating the question from earlier. "I'm better than okay," Jasmine replied, her voice steady despite the emotion thick in her throat. "I'm surrounded by the best people I've ever known." The Marines chuckled, their laughter lightening the mood. Someone cracked a joke about how they should start charging for interventions like this, drawing smiles from everyone present. Even amidst the seriousness of the situation, they managed to find moments of levity, a testament to the camaraderie that defined their bond. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the park, the group lingered for a while. Longer. They shared stories, posed for photos, and promised to stay in touch. For Jasmine, the day had started as a quiet afternoon in the park, only to transform into something far greater, a reminder of the enduring power of unity, loyalty, and respect. And as she watched her fellow Marines pack up and prepare to leave, she knew one thing for certain. No matter where life took her, she would always have an army standing behind her. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the park in hues of orange and pink, the Marines began to gather around Jasmine in a protective circle. The tension that had gripped the air just moments earlier had dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of unity and purpose. The bullies were long gone, their cowardice exposed and their lesson delivered, but the Marines weren't ready to leave just yet. This wasn't just about confronting harassment, it was about restoring dignity, reaffirming bonds, and ensuring that Jasmine felt seen, heard, and valued. Sergeant Marcus Hale stood tall beside Jasmine's wheelchair, his towering frame casting a reassuring shadow over her. He placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his touch steady and grounding. "You good, Jazz?" he asked, his deep voice softening slightly. It wasn't just a question. It was an acknowledgement of what she had endured, and a reminder that she wasn't alone. Jasmine nodded, her lips curving into a small but genuine smile. "Yeah," she replied, her voice calm but tinged with emotion. "I'm more than good. I've got all of you here." Her words carried a weight of gratitude, but also resilience. She hadn't needed saving, not really. But there was something undeniably powerful about having her fellow veterans rally around her like this. Their presence wasn't just protective, it was empowering. One by one, the Marines stepped forward to offer their support. Some knelt beside her wheelchair, their eyes level with hers, creating a sense of equality and connection. Others stood nearby, forming a loose semicircle that shielded her from the world outside. Each person brought something unique to the moment, whether it was a heartfelt hug, a shared memory from their days in service, or simply the quiet strength of standing beside her without saying a word. Rachel Torres, ever the compassionate leader, took Jasmine's hands in hers. "Your family," she said firmly, her gaze unwavering. And family doesn't let anyone mess with one of its own. Her words resonated deeply, not just with Jasmine, but with everyone present. For these men and women, the bond they shared transcended bloodlines. It was forged in the fires of adversity, strengthened by shared sacrifices, and cemented by an unspoken promise to always have each other's backs. The stories began to flow, naturally, as if the Marines couldn't help but reminisce about the past when they were together. One veteran, a wiry man named Tony, recounted a particularly grueling training exercise during boot camp. "Remember that time we thought we'd never make it through?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "Half of us wanted to quit. But then someone, probably you, Jazz, said something that kept us going." His laughter was contagious, drawing smiles from the group. Jasmine laughed too, recalling the moment vividly. "I think I told you guys to stop whining and start moving," she teased, her tone light but filled with pride. Another Marine, a woman named Lisa, chimed in with a story about their first deployment overseas. "We were stuck in the middle of nowhere, no showers, no real food, just dirt and sand everywhere," she recalled, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "But somehow we made it work because we had each other. And now, look at us, still standing, strong." Her words drew murmurs of agreement from the group, a collective nod to the enduring power of camaraderie. These anecdotes weren't just idle chatter. They were reminders of who they were and what they represented. To outsiders, they might have seemed like ordinary people, but to each other they were extraordinary. They were survivors, protectors, and champions of values that extended far beyond the battlefield. Respect, honor, and loyalty weren't just words to them. They were principles etched into their very beings. As the stories continued, Jasmine felt a warmth spread through her chest. This wasn't just about her. It was about the shared history and unbreakable ties that bound them together. She had faced countless challenges throughout her life: racism, sexism, ableism. But none of those hardships compared to the isolation she sometimes felt after leaving the military. Civilian life could be lonely, especially for someone like her, whose identity was so deeply intertwined with her service. Yet today, surrounded by her brothers and sisters in arms, she felt whole again. Marcus, sensing the shift in mood, decided to take things a step further. "Let's make this official," he announced, his voice carrying across the group. He pulled out his phone and started recording a video, turning the camera toward Jasmine. "Say something, Jazz," he encouraged. "Tell everyone why we're here." At first, Jasmine hesitated. She wasn't used to being in the spotlight, preferring to let her actions speak for themselves. But as she looked around at the faces of her fellow veterans, their expressions filled with encouragement and admiration, she realized this was bigger than her. This was about sending a message to the world. That veterans mattered, that respect mattered, and that no one should face cruelty alone. Taking a deep breath, Jasmine spoke directly into the camera. "Hi, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "My name is Jasmine Rivers, and I'm a disabled black female veteran. Today I was harassed by a group of teenagers in this park. But within 30 minutes, my Marine family showed up to stand with me. They reminded me, and hopefully they'll remind you, that we're stronger together. No matter who you are or where you come from, you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect." Her words struck a chord, not just with the Marines gathered around her, but with anyone who would later watch the video. Marcus stopped recording and gave her a proud nod. "That's our girl," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Now let's show the world what real unity looks like." With that, the group posed for photos, their smiles wide and genuine. Some held up signs they had hastily written on scraps of paper: "Respect our veterans and no one messes with family." Others draped American flags over their shoulders, their pride evident in every gesture. The images captured not just a moment of triumph, but a testament to the enduring spirit of the Marine Corps. As the evening drew to a close, the Marines began to disperse, each person exchanging hugs and promises to stay in touch. Before leaving, many left Jasmine with tokens of appreciation, a patch from their uniform, a challenge coin, or even a simple note scribbled on the back of a receipt. "For when you need a reminder of how amazing you are," one Marine joked, handing her a small trinket. When the last truck rumbled away and the park grew quiet once more, Jasmine sat alone, reflecting on the day's events. The bullies had tried to tear her down, but instead, they had sparked something beautiful, a display of solidarity that proved the power of community. As she wheeled herself toward the exit, she couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't the end of her story. It was a new beginning. The sun finally slipped below the horizon, casting the park in shadows. But for Jasmine, the darkness didn't feel so daunting anymore. She knew that wherever life took her next, she would carry the lessons of this day with her. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. That respect is earned through action rather than demanded. And that true, strength lies not in standing alone but in standing together. The events of that autumn afternoon at Lincoln Park didn't end when the Marines dispersed or the sun dipped below the horizon. In fact, they were just beginning to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond the park itself. What started as a quiet moment of harassment had transformed into something much larger, a testament to the enduring power of unity, respect, and resilience. For Jasmine Rivers, it marked not just a personal victory, but also an opportunity to inspire change on a broader scale. By the time she returned home that evening, word of what had happened had already begun to spread. Marcus's video of Jasmine speaking directly to the camera, her words filled with strength and grace, had been uploaded to social media within minutes of being recorded. It didn't take long for the clip to gain traction. Veterans groups shared it widely, tagging friends and encouraging others to amplify the message. Civilian supporters joined in, moved by the raw honesty of Jasmine's words and the overwhelming show of solidarity from her fellow Marines. By morning, the video had gone viral, racking up thousands of views, likes, and comments. "Thank you for reminding us what true courage looks like," one commenter wrote. Another added, "This is why we stand behind our veterans. They represent the best of us." The outpouring of support was staggering, but it wasn't limited to online interactions. Local news outlets picked up the story, dubbing the incident Operation Respect and highlighting the actions of the Marines who had shown up to defend their comrade. Journalists reached out to Jasmine for interviews, eager to learn more about her journey and how she had become such a powerful symbol of perseverance. At first, Jasmine hesitated to step into the spotlight. She had never sought fame or recognition. All she had wanted was a peaceful afternoon in the park. But as messages poured in, from veterans sharing their own struggles with post-service life to civilians expressing gratitude for her reminder of the importance of kindness, she realized this was bigger than her. This was an opportunity to spark meaningful conversations about respect, inclusion, and the challenges faced by disabled individuals and people of color in everyday life. Encouraged by her fellow Marines, Jasmine agreed to share her story publicly. She appeared on local television programs, speaking candidly about her experiences as a Black female veteran living with a disability. Her voice was steady and measured, yet it carried an undeniable passion. "I'm not special because I served my country," she explained during one interview. "I'm human just like everyone else. But if sharing my story can help someone feel less alone or remind people to treat each other with dignity, then I'll keep telling it." Her words resonated deeply, striking a chord with audiences across the nation. Viewers were captivated, not only by her resilience but also by her unwavering optimism. Here was a woman who had faced discrimination, injury, and hardship, and yet, she refused to let bitterness define her. Instead, she chose to focus on lifting others up, using her platform to advocate for causes close to her heart. One of those causes quickly became clear: supporting disabled veterans. Inspired by the overwhelming response to her story, Jasmine partnered with local organizations dedicated to aiding veterans transitioning back to civilian life. She began hosting workshops and speaking engagements, offering guidance and encouragement to those struggling with physical disabilities or mental health challenges. "You don't have to do it alone. she often told her audiences. There's a whole community out there ready to support you. You just have to reach out. Her efforts extended beyond veterans, too, recognizing the role bullying had played. In bringing her Marines to the park that day, Jasmine launched an initiative aimed at educating communities about empathy and respect. She visited schools, community centers, and youth programs, sharing her story and engaging young people in discussions about the impact of their words and actions. It's easy to forget that everyone is fighting battles we can't see, she told one group of students. But kindness costs nothing, and it has the power to change lives. As weeks turned into months, the legacy of that fateful afternoon continued to grow. The phrase Operation Respect took on a life of its own, becoming a rallying cry for anyone striving to create a more inclusive and compassionate world. Social media users adopted the hashtag Operation Respect, flooding platforms with stories of kindness, unity, and standing up for others. Teachers incorporated Jasmine's story into lesson plans. Parents used it as a teaching moment for their children, and activists cited it as proof that collective action could make a difference. For the Marines who had shown up that day, the experience reinforced the values they had sworn to uphold. Many reconnected with old friends from their units, reigniting bonds that had grown distant over time. Others found renewed purpose in mentoring younger veterans or volunteering in their communities. Sergeant Marcus Hale summed it up best during a reunion barbecue several months later. That day wasn't just about protecting Jasmine. It was about reminding ourselves why we joined the Corps in the first place. To serve, to protect, to stand together. Jasmine herself remained humble throughout it all, deflecting praise onto the people who had supported her. "I'm just one person," she would say whenever someone called her a hero. "What matters is the army of good people standing beside me. Together, we're unstoppable." And unstoppable they were. From sparking nationwide conversations about respect and inclusion to inspiring countless acts of kindness. The ripple effects of that single afternoon in Lincoln Park proved that even the smallest moments of solidarity could lead to monumental change. For Jasmine, the journey was far from over, but she faced it with the same determination and grace that had defined her since the beginning. As she sat on her porch one evening, watching the sunset and reflecting on everything that had transpired, Jasmine felt a deep sense of peace. The bullies who had tried to tear her down were nothing more than a distant memory now. Their cruelty had been met with love, strength, and unity, a testament to the idea that darkness could never extinguish light. And as long as there were people willing to stand together, that light would continue to shine brightly, illuminating the path toward a better, kinder world.